I'm almost certainly not going to be as interesting as our entrepreneurs. Blown away, right? Just really incredible. So well done. I'm going to try and round up the day in, I'd say 5 minutes, but I got in trouble this morning for taking 10 minutes. But between 5 and 10 minutes, won't keep you long. Yesterday was obviously really to do with trends and stories. Today we moved into nuts and bolts of investment, technology, sustainability, entrepreneurship. I think first of all I want to say it's incredible to see so many of you still here in the audience. It's been 3 big days and 3 incredible days thanks to the team. But what have we learned? I think the first thing that struck me was around landlord relationships. It's been this kind of trickle, and it's definitely been over, if I think about the 6 years here at Griff, it's been a complete change of headspace, and we've had this over and over from the stage today. You know, 4 or 5 years ago, people were talking about having to aggressively chase property opportunities. I think what we heard consistently today, quite the reverse now. Actually, landlords are having to completely change their game, and it's about partnership relationships. There's been a deep structural change in the sector. I'm quoting Robin there. There's been smaller format properties and smaller format concepts are being really driven, and we think that a lot of investors are looking at that as an opportunity. Interestingly, we've also seen saturation in a lot of the big markets, people looking further afield, people looking for new opportunities, whether it be partnerships with hotels, partnerships with retailers. This is all really taking off. And I think Jonathan gave us a really great overview of the German market, and I loved his little piece about they will only accept brands if they're placemakers and not space takers. What a really nice nugget there. I think when we move to the investment side, I think we really saw a changing perception around franchise, interestingly. I think if I rewind 3 years ago, I remember people sitting on stage, and maybe it's just the type of investors we had on stage, saying, not interested in franchise, we're looking for managed rollout, that's where the money's coming from. And actually, I think today we heard more and more people saying, we are interested in franchise, we're interested in larger formats. And I think Chris Miller said very well that we're not looking necessarily for something that scales to 200 sites anymore. And I think this idea of private equity-backed push is not necessarily the future of our sector. People are also willing to look international. So many conversations happening on the side. I think it's been awesome to see how much of that's happening outside. And it's one of the things I love about Griff is deals really do get done here and proper conversations happen. This is not just standing and looking at the stage. It's all those connections outside too. So I'm glad that you all really appreciate that opportunity as well. Interestingly to me, there is that whole piece about incredible product, but building an experience around it, we were told. And I think that that's also really transitioned into incredible experiential concepts. We also heard that the retail landscape with huge department stores are in decline. There's very few of them left now, right? That these places are a great replacement for what were department stores, but of course not paying as much rent per square foot or meter, depending where you are. So, interestingly, the plant-based thing, this morning I walked away thinking it's odd that a number of people on stage did not seem convinced that plant-based concepts were the future. From the section just now, it seems that people do see that plant-based is part of the future, and interestingly, it's just about getting it right. I think it would be a real odd thing to consider that actually 4 years ago that we would be standing here today and almost half the concepts on stage pitching were plant-based. And it does really show, based on the conversation I had with Emma Banks on stage yesterday here, how much there's changes in trends happen within the original and kind of traditional strategy periods of 3 or 5 years and how you've got to adapt. Of course, the plant-based thing links directly into the environmental impact, and we know that that's one of the key drivers of why consumers are going plant-based and going more and more vegan in terms of their choice. But I think what's really fascinating with that, and what we heard today environmentally, is that there's about being transparent. It's about being engaging with your in a conversation with your consumers. It's not just about knowing all the answers. I think there's a point here that's about, frankly, environmental and doing the right thing for the environment and sustainability should not be a competitive advantage. Of course it is to a degree, but let's share. Let's make sure that as an industry, we're willing to open the doors around this stuff, because that is the only way we will improve. And frankly, we have one planet, right? It's about sharing and doing things together as a sector and putting our guard down. Technology, I mean, how many great sessions on technology, and I think just watching the incredible thing. I'm putting this up on the screen because it's my favorite cartoon as a kid. And actually I was researching, and I think that this was actually meant to be based in the early 2020s, so not quite yet there yet. But I do think what's really interesting, we may not have flying cars and so on, but isn't it great to think that in terms of our future and the way technology is impacting our world, it's not about that stuff. It's about being able to add value and helping us in terms of being ready for the future, both in terms of the planet and also making sure that it enhances our lives, rather than just being there from a purely wanky perspective. And I've dropped a wanky word in there, so it's still okay to swear at Griff, right? I think what's really interesting, we talked about there's multiple ways, from reducing waste to enhancing experiences, improving operations, increasing loyalty, and taking away some of the menial tasks and automating that is where we're going to see, really see technology playing an important part in our sector. There's some incredible brands and technology players out there, frankly, with some impressive valuations, right? And that's really, really great. I think, though, there is a challenge. There is a challenge that these players are not yet connecting properly, and the connectivity is a major issue. We're struggling with institutional technology providers who are preventing innovation in our sector by not working with startups and those who are moving the dial forward. If you're a brand owner and you're sitting there and you have big budgets and big deep pockets and you're spending it with technology providers, do not accept it. If we want to move forward and we want to move forward together, we have to accept new innovation, and we've got to accept that connectivity. We need to, whilst it will give customers a competitive edge, brands a competitive edge with our customers, it's really interesting that I think there's a distinct difference between those brands that are for convenience, that are really looking for that technology can go front and back of house, and those that are more about experience, where it's about making the experience more seamless. It will absolutely add value from a cash perspective and the value of a company in terms of good use of technology. And I think we've done a lot of due diligence recently with acquisition of brands, and it's become a very important part, which I'm sure a number of you will agree with in terms of the investment. Having great infrastructure and great technology is really important. We talked about the whole dark kitchens, and I think Peter did a really great roundup, brilliant presentation as always, talking about this is about disrupted business. It is the big disruptor in our sector, the whole delivery piece. It's creating opportunities, but it's causing problems too. He talked about the sector being slow to be infected by Silicon Valley, but it's coming and coming fast. People are looking this way about facility utilization and making the most out of their spaces. But he also talked about, frankly, these being subscale factories. And I agree. I've worked with lots of providers looking at dark kitchens from a brand perspective, and we've operated dark kitchens too. That it is not yet a model which is completely and utterly where it needs to be. And I think that we're going to see huge movement here. And frankly, chefs do not want to work in boxes and cold car parks. We need to come up with a way where it balances out. I think that there is a really, really harsh reality when you talk about big players with deep pockets looking at dark kitchens, and I think Peter nailed it really well. What do you do, and are you needed within that model? And I think we are seeing the biggest players already operating their own sites. And I think that these are people who are partners who are becoming competitors. And I think that it's one of the areas that I think we absolutely need to work hard to push what it is we do, why we do it well, and ultimately that love we talked about yesterday, bringing it through. Will it be the work we work with the food sector? Well, let's wait and see. In terms of the entrepreneurs, I think it's fascinating that we've just incredible, year after year, to see different concepts coming on stage and talking about the complete diversity of what's happening in our sector. We have new ideas. These are people who are innovating, and I think that those people who are in the room who have got the ability to do so already do, of course, but make sure you mentor, support, invest in them. I think that what we heard really strongly today is, things being grammable, design-focused, really great product, and diversity of formats came out really strongly. I think that it is, of course, still acceptable to swear at Griff. We heard over and over. And one more time, I think that what Jennifer and the team have done with Griff over the past 6 years is create an event that's truly international with awesome people. That's you guys, it's all the people up here. it's brands, it's investors, it's property, but ultimately it's people, right? And we walk away from here every year feeling inspired, but more than that, feeling like we've built great connections for the future. We have a number of briefings happening across the year again, so please do get involved in that. Make sure that you go away, link in with people, have those coffees, continue those relationships, continue to travel. And I think that talking about evolution, this event has evolved, our sector evolves, and I think that it's absolutely incredible to see how far we come as a sector each and every year. So thank you to Jennifer, Hugo, Sally, Mina, Ali, all the speakers, all of you that have come. Can we get one big round of applause for all the production team? Thank you. That's all from me, but I'm going to pass back for the momentous part of the day, and I'll let Sarah Jane wrap up. Thank you very much.
Thanks, brilliant.